Obviously, one of the more devastating things to come out of the Super Bowl loss against the Kansas City Chiefs was the injury sustained to linebacker Dre Greenlaw. I know you guys have seen the video. I'm going to spare you. I can't stomach another mic'd up video from the Super Bowl. I refuse to share them. I just can't take it. So, but we've seen it. I guarantee you've seen it, where Dre Greenlaw was getting ready to run onto the field, and you just see the Achilles give way. He hits the turf. Fred Warner's expression says it all. And just, seeing Fred on the sideline, just in tears, just absolutely gut wrenching. So this was one of the more devastating things to come out of that. But we do have an update in regards to Dre Greenlaw and the injury on the Achilles. So according to Ian Rappaport, it was a full tear. So he completely tore the Achilles, and he had a successful surgery on it today. So the surgery is done. He had actually posted to his Instagram earlier today, so I assume he posted this when he got out of surgery. It was about an hour and a half ago, and as you can see, he posted this photo from another Instagram account, and the caption says, "I am slowly learning to be thankful for the pain, for it has made me into the person I am today." So absolutely brutal for Dre Greenlaw. Just a tough scenario for him in general, because not only, did we have this injury, and he was suffering from an Achilles tendonitis for a couple weeks. Fred Warner talked about this after the game, that it was something that had been bothering him quite a bit, and it just gave out in the worst possible way, in the worst possible time, in the biggest game. And it's such an unfortunate situation, because not only, did we lose Dre Greenlaw, who's one of the most important players on the 49ers defense for the Super Bowl, but there's a good chance we could miss him for a huge part of the season next year, potentially even the whole season next season. So it's a difficult one. It's definitely a difficult one to have, and to kind of give more information on this. I'm not a doctor. So let's actually turn to an actual sports medicine professional who deals with this stuff quite a bit. He goes on to 95.7 The Game all the time. He is their kind of medical insider, Dr. Nirav Pandya. He does a phenomenal job. He's a guy that we relied on pretty heavily for Brock Purdy's surgery and UCL situation. He did a phenomenal job of kind of explaining that. So Dr. Pandya is going to give us kind of a look at what the timetable for return is for Dre Greenlaw, what our expectations should be, and kind of when to expect Dre Greenlaw back next season, potentially. So take a listen as Dr. Pandya joined 95.7 The Game, Willard and Dibbs, right here.
Let's get into some of these injuries. And I actually want to start with Dre Greenlaw. What are we looking at? What's a realistic thought on when Dre Greenlaw is playing good football again?
Yeah, I think putting aside the Aaron Rodgers kind of, data and Cam Akers, I mean, you're typically looking at 9 to 12 months in terms of when someone can be effective. Now, could he potentially be back for the first half of the season, that 7-8 month mark and be on the field? Totally a possibility. But in general, if you look at linebackers, they're a little bit stronger, a little bit more force going across that Achilles. I would anticipate 9 to 10 months before we see him being impactful on the field.
Man, so that means that he's basically out for the year next year, wouldn't you say, Doc? I mean, 9 months would be November, 10 months would be December. Is it even sensible at that point to try to make a go and come back at all next year?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult decision. Do you come back and do you risk, potentially another injury by coming back later half of the year? Or even if he is on one of these accelerated protocols where players come back earlier, is it worth to come back at 6 to 7 months and then have an injury somewhere else? So absolutely, I think the next season for him is definitely a question mark. Would I be surprised if he comes back early? I mean, with all the techniques and rehab, it's possible, but we just don't have a good track record on players coming back early, particularly at that position.
So again, he kind of omitted the whole like Aaron Rodgers thing. Like we can't use him as a baseline. Also, I do think an important aspect of this was talking about what position he played and being a linebacker, and how much they drive, off their using their legs and shooting gaps and all those different types of things, and how they put strain on that Achilles. It's just a tough injury, man. It's such a tough injury for these guys, and as you can hear from Dr. Ponja, there's no guarantee that Dre Greenlaw is going to even be able to play next year, because he has to go through a 9 to 10 month potential rehab process. Now, the silver lining is that athletes like this do tend to heal faster than normal people. So maybe there is a slight chance that he kind of ramps up the rehab, and is able to put a lot of extra focus into the rehab and is able to get back sooner rather than later. But regardless, that still has him at best, maybe being able to go in the middle of the season, around the third quarter of the season. So it's just a tough situation, man, because Dre has been such an integral part of this defense. And again, I talked to Luke Kuechly, the great Panthers linebacker, going to be a future Hall of Famer. And we were talking about Fred specifically. And the one thing he said unsolicitedly was, you can't talk about Fred without talking about Dre. These two guys are like an elite tandem. They play off each other. They help each other. They make each other great. And again, that kind of speaks to kind of like Fred Warner's reaction and all that kind of stuff in real time, is that these guys are a duo. They're a tandem. They're Bowman and Willis, they're Greenlaw and Warner. These guys are those guys. So this is a tough one, man. Again, I'm glad to hear that it was a successful surgery and he's expected to make a full recovery, which is ultimately what we want. And obviously, selfishly, as fans of the team and stuff like that, we want him back. We want him playing. We want him on the field. But at the same time, he's got to get right, and he's got to do what's best for him to be able to get back to that spot. So however long that takes, I would say that the fan base is going to be riding with Dre. So whatever that looks like, if it's not this year, which obviously would be devastating, it is what it is. He's got to get right, and he's got to get back. So that will leave some additional questions for how the 49ers address the linebacker position. Do they rely on Oren Burks, D. Winters, Jalen Graham? Do they try to go get Aziz and bring Aziz back and put him in a potentially prominent role for next year? A lot of questions are going to occur due to this injury, but man, this is one of the toughest things to come from the Super Bowl. Let me know what you guys feel about all this. Let me know what you feel about Dre. What do you think the 49ers need to do to kind of make sure that they're okay? If Dre can't get back, I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.